Jane Eyre, published in 1847 by Charlotte Brontë, is a classic of English literature, blending elements of Gothic romance, social critique, and psychological depth. The novel is a first-person narrative that follows the life of Jane Eyre, an orphan girl who endures a series of hardships but remains steadfast in her pursuit of independence, self-respect, and love. Through its exploration of class, gender, religion, and morality, Jane Eyre continues to be widely read and studied, resonating with readers through its depiction of a woman's struggle to assert her dignity and autonomy in a society that often seeks to suppress them. Plot summary. Early life at Gateshead. The novel begins with young Jane Eyre living at Gateshead Hall with her cruel aunt, Mrs. Reed, and her cousins. Jane is an orphan. Her parents died when she was a baby, and her uncle, Mr. Reed, took her in. However, after his death, Jane becomes an outcast in the Reed family, enduring emotional and physical abuse from her aunt and her bullying cousin, John. Jane's childhood is one of isolation, deprivation, and loneliness, but she finds solace in books and her vivid imagination. One of the novel's defining moments occurs early in Jane's childhood when she is unjustly punished and locked in the Red Room, a dark and ominous chamber where her uncle died. The experience leaves her feeling deeply alienated, symbolizing her emotional confinement and social exclusion. Her rebellious nature and strong will begin to emerge during these early scenes as she confronts her aunt and fights for her own sense of justice. Life at Lowood School. At age 10, Jane is sent away to Lowood School, a charity institution for orphan girls. Life at Lowood is harsh and oppressive. The girls endure poor living conditions, strict discipline, and frequent illness due to inadequate food and shelter. The school is run by the hypocritical and tyrannical Mr. Brocklehurst, who preaches Christian humility while living in luxury himself. Despite the hardships, Jane forms a close bond with Helen Burns, a kind and devout fellow student who teaches Jane the values of patience, forgiveness, and spiritual faith. Helen's death from consumption deeply affects Jane, highlighting the theme of suffering and loss that runs throughout the novel. However, Jane also finds a maternal figure in Miss Temple, a compassionate teacher who treats the girls with kindness and dignity. Under Miss Temple's guidance, Jane excels in her studies, eventually becoming a teacher at Lowood after spending 8 years there as both a student and an instructor. Thornfield Hall and Mr. Rochester. Seeking a change from the confines of Lowood, Jane advertises herself as a governess and is hired to teach Adele Varens, a young French girl living at Thornfield Hall. Upon arriving at Thornfield, Jane meets Mrs. Fairfax, the kindly housekeeper, and settles into her new role. Thornfield seems like a peaceful, quiet place, but the arrival of Mr. Rochester, the enigmatic and brooding master of the estate, changes everything. Jane and Mr. Rochester's relationship is central to the novel, marked by intellectual and emotional intensity. From the start, Rochester treats Jane with respect and honesty, recognizing her intelligence and spirit. Their conversations are filled with wit, philosophical musings, and mutual understanding, drawing them closer together. Over time, Jane realizes she has fallen in love with Rochester, despite the differences in their social status and his mysterious past. However, Thornfield Hall is also home to strange occurrences, such as eerie laughter and unexplained fires, hinting at a dark secret within its walls. These Gothic elements add to the suspense and intrigue of the story, creating an atmosphere of mystery that permeates Jane's time at Thornfield. The revelation of Bertha Mason. Just as Jane and Rochester are about to be married, a shocking revelation comes to light. Rochester is already married to Bertha Mason, a woman he has kept locked in the attic of Thornfield due to her madness. Bertha, a Creole woman from Jamaica, is depicted as violent and unstable, and Rochester explains that he was tricked into marrying her for her wealth, only to discover her insanity after the marriage. This discovery shatters Jane's world. Although she loves Rochester deeply, she refuses to compromise her moral principles by becoming his mistress. Jane's decision to leave Thornfield, despite her intense feelings for Rochester, is a testament to her strength of character and her commitment to maintaining her dignity and independence. Her departure from Thornfield marks a turning point in the novel, as Jane once again finds herself alone and uncertain of her future. Jane's time with the Rivers family. After fleeing Thornfield, Jane is destitute and wandering the moors, nearly starving before she is taken in by the Rivers family. The Rivers siblings St. John, Diana, and Mary are kind and generous, providing Jane with shelter and companionship. She eventually learns that they are her cousins and that she has inherited a fortune from a previously unknown relative, making her financially independent for the first time in her life. During her time with the Rivers family, Jane develops a close friendship with Diana and Mary, but St. John Rivers, a cold and driven clergyman, presents her with a new challenge. He proposes marriage to Jane, not out of love, but as a practical partnership for missionary work in India. St. John represents a form of rigid religious duty that contrasts with Jane's more personal and emotional approach to faith. Although she admires his dedication, Jane refuses his proposal, recognizing that a marriage without love would be another form of self-betrayal. Returned to Thornfield and reunion with Rochester, Jane ultimately feels a strong pull back to Thornfield, driven by her unresolved feelings for Rochester. Upon her return, she finds Thornfield Hall in ruins, having been destroyed by a fire set by Bertha Mason, who perished in the blaze. Rochester, in trying to save his wife, was severely injured and left blind and disfigured. Despite his physical decline, Jane still loves him deeply, and their reunion is one of mutual redemption and reconciliation. With Rochester now humbled and Jane empowered by her newfound independence, their relationship is finally one of true equality. They marry, and in the novel's final chapter, it is revealed that Rochester eventually regains partial sight, allowing him to see their firstborn son. This conclusion reinforces the novel's themes of personal growth, love, and the triumph of the human spirit over adversity. Character analysis. Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre is one of the most compelling and nuanced protagonists in English literature. Her life is marked by hardship and injustice, but she remains steadfast in her pursuit of self-respect, independence, and love on her own terms. Jane is defined by her moral integrity, her intelligence, and her emotional resilience. Throughout the novel, she confronts societal expectations regarding gender, class, and religion, refusing to compromise her principles even when doing so brings her pain. Jane's journey is one of self-discovery as she navigates her relationships with others while maintaining her own sense of identity. Her love for Rochester is central to the novel, but it is her refusal to lose herself in that love that makes her such a powerful and enduring character. Mr. Rochester. Edward Rochester is a complex and brooding character, embodying the Gothic archetype of the Byronic hero. He is initially portrayed as arrogant, cynical, and secretive, but his relationship with Jane reveals his capacity for vulnerability and emotional depth. Rochester's tragic flaw is his attempt to manipulate fate and control those around him, particularly in his concealment of his marriage to Bertha Mason. Despite his flaws, Rochester is ultimately redeemed through his love for Jane and the suffering he endures after the destruction of Thornfield. His physical blindness and disfigurement symbolize his moral blindness and the internal transformation he undergoes over the course of the novel. St. John Rivers. St. John Rivers represents a form of rigid, self-denying religiosity that contrasts sharply with Jane's more passionate and personal approach to faith. His cold, unemotional demeanor and unwavering dedication to his missionary work reflect his belief in sacrifice and duty over personal happiness. Although Jane respects his dedication, she recognizes that his vision of life is incompatible with her own desire for love and emotional fulfillment. St. John's character serves as a foil to Rochester, highlighting the different paths Jane could have taken in life. Bertha Mason. Bertha Mason, Rochester's wife, is a key figure in the novel, though she is often hidden from view. She represents both the literal and metaphorical barrier to Jane and Rochester's happiness. Bertha is depicted as a violent and uncontrollable force, embodying Victorian fears of madness, racial otherness, and female sexuality. While Bertha's portrayal has been criticized for its dehumanizing elements, she also functions as a symbol of repressed desires and the consequences of secrets and lies. Themes. Independence and autonomy. One of the central themes of Jane Eyre is Jane's struggle to assert her independence and autonomy in a world that often seeks to diminish her. From her childhood at Gateshead to her time at Thornfield, Jane constantly fights for her right to self-respect and dignity. She refuses to be dominated by others, whether it is her abusive aunt, the tyrannical Mr. Brocklehurst, or even the man she loves, Mr. Rochester. Jane's journey is one of self-empowerment, as she learns to balance her need for love with her desire for independence. Social class and inequality. The novel also explores the rigid social hierarchy of Victorian England, particularly the ways in which class differences shape relationships and opportunities. Jane's position as a poor, orphan governess places her in a liminal space between the servant class and the gentry. Her relationship with Rochester, who belongs to a higher social class, challenges these divisions, highlighting the limitations and injustices of the class system. Religion and morality. Religion plays a significant role in the novel, with various characters representing different approaches to faith. Helen Burns embodies Christian forgiveness and humility, while Mr. Brocklehurst represents religious hypocrisy. St. John Rivers' rigid sense of duty and self-sacrifice contrasts with Jane's more personal and passionate approach to morality and faith. Throughout the novel, Jane grapples with questions of religious duty, morality, and the nature of true goodness. Love and passion. The theme of love, both romantic and familial, is central to the novel. Jane's relationship with Rochester is intense and complex, marked by both deep passion and ethical dilemmas. However, Jane's love for Rochester is ultimately grounded in mutual respect and emotional equality. The novel also explores the importance of self-love and the need for emotional fulfillment beyond romantic attachment. Conclusion: Jane Eyre remains one of the most enduring and influential novels in English literature. Its exploration of themes such as independence, class, gender, and morality continues to resonate with readers today. At its heart, the novel is a powerful story of one woman's journey to assert her identity and find love and happiness on her own terms. Through Jane Eyre's character, Charlotte Brontë challenges societal norms and offers a vision of personal empowerment that has inspired generations of readers. Created for Squeeze That Book channel. Please subscribe to follow new videos. And leave a comment with your thoughts about the book.